Biden. Joining me now is House Ways and Means Committee Chairman, Missouri Congressman Jason Smith. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for being here. What's your reaction?
You know, the president always leads from behind, and this is just another example, Maria. What's going on college campuses is absolutely unacceptable. I had a Jewish student just this week from Harvard come into my office to talk about the intimidation, the violence and the harassment that they've been doing. This must stop, and the federal government and every local government needs to use every lever to protect Jewish students.
Well, I don't understand. I mean, don't we all agree on this? Why did it take Joe Biden 10 days of silence before he ever actually said anything about this?
You know, Maria, he's always a day late and a dollar short, as my grandpa used to say. He's always leading from behind.
Why?
He needs to do what some successful university chancellors and presidents have done. I look to my home state, Washington University. It's a very elite university. They said no immediately to the encampment that tried to set up. They arrested 100 people. But guess what, Maria? Only 33 of the 100 were actually students at Washington University.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of outside agitators on all of these university campuses. Who do you think it is, and who's funding it? What have you learned?
There's no question it's being funded by these progressive organizations. In fact, at the Ways and Means Committee, Maria, we have been looking at these tax-exempt status of these organizations and how they have been funneling terrorism. In fact, there's been millions of dollars that we have discovered that has went to Hamas and terrorist organizations, let alone you see a lot of these foundations that are funding and pushing and promoting this anti-Semitic approach on college campuses.
So do you want to cut federal funding to universities?
I think we have to look at every lever. And in the Ways and Means Committee, we look at the generous benefits that these universities have when it comes to generous tax benefits, being tax-free. And also these billion-dollar endowments they have, they might need to see a higher tax.
I see. The higher taxes for the endowments. Interesting. Okay. The House Judiciary Committee reportedly planning to mark up a resolution next week which would hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress because he's refusing to hand over audio of former special counsel Robert Hur's interview with President Biden. You and your colleagues are saying the recordings are crucial for the impeachment inquiry, but the DOJ says it's not relevant at all. Mr. Chairman, tell us more about this. Why do you need to see this interview?
It's extremely important in the impeachment inquiry to see what was said in that audio conversation. We requested that months ago. The Justice Department has been delaying. But Maria, this isn't unusual for the Justice Department. At the Ways and Means Committee, we have seen how the Justice Department have delayed, divulged, and denied anything that led to President Biden in the investigation. The two IRS whistleblowers that came before our committee highlighted that in numerous attempts. So this is not a surprise. Yeah.
Will there ever be accountability there? How's your investigation going?
Sure hope so. You know, first off, I think that you'll see next week the Judiciary Committee will hold Merrick Garland in contempt, or at least bring the proceedings forward and to do that, because that's in fact what they did. And that is a rare situation. I believe it's only happened 4 times of a cabinet secretary in the history of this country, but it's unacceptable what's going on right now.
So, I mean, I guess people want to know what that means, the contempt of Congress. What specifically will happen to Merrick Garland when he's slapped on with a contempt of Congress title?
Maria, if you recall, whenever the Democrats controlled the House of Representatives, they held a contempt in Congress for several individuals, including Steve Bannon was one of them. And you know what? The Justice Department then brought charges on Steve Bannon for being contempt of Congress. Let's see if the Justice Department will actually do that if one of their own is held in contempt.
Well, how are they going to do that? It's the AG. It's the head of the Justice Department. Why would they? They're not going to turn their ire against Merrick Garland. This is Joe Biden's DOJ.
Maria, that's exactly right. Joe Biden controls the Justice Department. That's in fact why Joe Biden will lose in November and why Donald Trump will be the next president, because the American people are hungry for a house cleaning in the federal government to make sure the government is working for the people, not against the people. Well,
look, we know what Joe Biden's economy for the next 4 years will look like. He gave us a blueprint with his budget for 2025, which includes $5.5 trillion in new taxes. Now, Fox Business's White House correspondent Correspondent Edward Lawrence pressed the White House press secretary about his plans to let the Trump tax cuts expire. Watch this.
If that law expires, it does raise taxes on almost every American. So does he still support that expiring without anything else in place?
The president is going to allow the Trump tax cut expire, but he will not raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 a year.
The president can't pick and choose which part of the law sunsets. The entire law will sunset. And the tax foundation says that someone who's married, 2 kids, making $85,000 would pay $1,700 more in taxes. That's somebody under $400,000 who would.
The president has been very clear. He's going to protect working and middle-class Americans making less than $400,000 a year.
She's sticking to her talking points there, Mr. Chairman, even though Edward Lawrence did a great job of mapping it out. People making $85,000 are going to pay more taxes if you let the tax cuts expire. But she's ignoring what he's saying.
That's exactly right, Maria. If the Trump tax cuts expire, every American will face more in taxes. And it really hits working class Americans. We figured that a family making less than $75,000 a year would face a $1,500 tax increase. This is unacceptable. We see the doubling of the child tax credit, which the Trump tax cuts did, from $1,000 to $2,000. That is slashed in half. $2,000 to $1,000. And you know what? The president can say that he's going to let every one of the tax provisions in the Trump taxes to expire, but he's not going to raise taxes on people less than $400,000. I asked his administration, where is your plan? They have yet to ever provide a plan. In fact, they want to continue a $4 trillion tax increase on all Americans.
Yeah, I mean, if you allow the tax cuts to expire, obviously everybody's taxes go up. But I'm talking about the additional taxes that Biden wants to put in place, $5.5 trillion worth. How would you assess the economy today, and what would that do to this fragile state that we're in?
You know, Maria, I actually predict, based on his budget reporting, that it's $7 trillion in tax increases if you count the expiration of the Trump tax cuts, which is put in the budget, plus the additional ones. Let me tell you, the economy has been a disaster under Joe Biden. We have seen inflation rise nearly 20% since he's took the oath of office. Interest rates are the highest they've been in decades. Americans are struggling to just pay their mortgage, put food on their table, and clothes on their backs. And it's because of all the policy decisions of the Biden administration. That is, in fact, why Donald Trump, who led the best economy in my lifetime, will be reelected president in November.
All right, Mr. Chairman, we'll be watching your work. Thanks very much, Congressman Jason Smith, this morning. Thank you, sir.